between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Initially, I'll be talking about spermatogenesis, and with spermatogenesis, two things we have to learn here. One is the hormonal regulation of how this entire process is regulated by release of different hormones at different point of time and what are their roles. Secondly, we'll also have to learn about how the chromosome numbers are being distributed to actually helping in the formation of a sperm, then maturation, and finally ejaculating to a point where it can actually fertilize an ovum. So beginning with the first point, there are precursor stem cells which are also present in the body, but after puberty only they start to undergo mitosis, through which they can further undergo meiosis and meiosis 1 and 2. So in this first stage, the precursor stem cells are forming the 2N cells which are responsible for forming the spermatogonium here. Then they undergo differentiation to form more number of 2N, which is also called as the primary spermatocyte here. Now, primary spermatocyte undergoes reduction division, which is meiosis 1, through which, and we all know that in meiosis, whenever meiosis 1 happens, the chromosome number is half. So the 2N now becomes N, fine. Now they are still connected with this cytoplasm, but what we have learned about in meiosis, that usually the cells are going apart and there is proper karyokinesis as well as cytokinesis. Here karyokinesis is taking place. Karyokinesis means splitting of the chromosome number of the nuclear membrane basically, but cytokinesis, where the cells are completely dividing from each other and the cytoplasm is completely separated, that is not happening here, because they are, even though they have a covering here, even though they have their own membranes, but still they are connected with the cytoplasm. So this only happens after the secondary spermatocytes, they undergo meiosis 2, and finally they are freely forming spermatids. Now this spermatid is still not a mature sperm. They have to become mature through a certain process, and then that process is called as spermiogenesis, forming the mature sperms. So this I've explained to you how the chromosome number undergoes mitosis and then meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So we have to go through all the names, and what is spermatogonium, then what is primary spermatocyte, then what is secondary spermatocyte, and spermiogenesis. Fine. So now we discuss about the hormonal regulation and what happens to these sperms and from where they are released into which side. I am just clearing it off. Now we can discuss about what happens with the spermatocyte. So after meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, all of this was happening in the seminiferous tubules. If you look into the diagram of a testis, there is seminiferous tubules which are present there. They are basically undergoing the process of meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, where a sperm is formed, or I would say a spermatid is formed. But now this spermatid is actually attached, is pushed to the lumen. Fine. When we look into a seminiferous tubule, it is something like this. Inside is the lumen cavity and this is the basilar membrane. So they are pushed into the lumen, and from here they start developing flagella. Fine. This flagella would be responsible for forming a mature tail which will help the sperm to gain its maturity. Fine. So they are pushed to these levels and they start developing flagella. Now they have to be removed from this side to make them free flowing. So now here, with the help of myoid cells are present at the outer boundary of the seminiferous tubules. They help in actually pushing these sperms from away from this side, and from here they move to reti testis. Where is reti testis? If I draw the diagram of testis, and this is the seminiferous tubule, so somewhere here is the reti testis region, and then we have epididymis also. Fine. So after the cells have detached from the seminiferous tubules with the help of myoid cells which are pushing them, and they enter reti testis. From reti testis they enter the inferior epididymis region. They enter the inferior epididymis region. Fine. From the inferior epididymis, now they gain mitochondria. And we all know why is mitochondria required. Mitochondria is required for providing energy or ATP molecule which would be used by the sperms. Fine. So after once the cells are free from the seminiferous tubule region, with the help of myoid cells they are pushed from this wall. They enter the reti testis region. From reti testis they are entering the inferior epididymis, where they gather mitochondria responsible for generation of ATP. From here they enter the vas deferens. Okay. After, if I say from seminiferous tubules, they were pushed by the help of myoid cells, fine, into the retitestis region. From retitestis they are entering inferior epididymis. Okay, they are entering inferior epididymis. From epididymis they are entering vas deferens. From this they enter urethra with the passage of urinary bladder, and then they are moving out. So when we discuss this in a sequential manner, the seminiferous tubules are basically responsible for growing of the spermatids. Fine. This is helping in the developed flagella of the sperm. They are helping in pushing them outwards to retitestis. From here they enter inferior epididymis, where they gain mitochondria for generation of ATP. Now they flow to vas deferens, and here they would be mixed with many other fluids, and finally they enter into the urethra. Okay. So this is from spermatogenesis, and now I will be discussing about regulation of spermatogenesis through hormones. Okay. So let's learn what happens to the hormones in spermatogenesis. If I draw this diagram, it would be very clear that I am drawing some sort of diagram where it is concerned with hypothalamus and pituitary. Posterior. So what is happening with the hormonal regulation? Now we have to discuss this point. After puberty, what happens? Hypothalamus starts to release GnRH. What is GnRH? Gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. So here what is happening? Hypothalamus is releasing GnRH. GnRH is targeting its site, which is anterior pituitary, to start releasing FSH and LH. FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone, LH stands for luteinizing hormone. So hypothalamus after puberty starts to release gonadotropin releasing hormone, which now is targeting the anterior pituitaries to start releasing FSH and LH. Now FSH and LH, they have their own target sites. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, they have their own target sites. The luteinizing hormone binds to the Leydig cells present, and this binds to the Sertoli cells. Fine. This is also responsible for maturation of the follicle in the process of spermatogenesis. They are helping in that process as well. So when these hormones are being released, it binds to Leydig cells to start releasing testosterone. Fine. These all hormones are responsible in the process of spermatogenesis. That is why they are very well required. So whenever the hormonal levels are decreasing, immediately the hypothalamus starts releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone, and then this process goes on. So anterior pituitary release FSH and LH. LH binds to Leydig cells to form testosterone. FSH in turn binds to Sertoli cells to start releasing ABP. What is ABP? It is androgen binding protein. So androgen binding protein, what it does, it actually accumulates the testosterone around it. So there is a high supply of testosterone in that area, and this now helps, all of this process is helping this testosterone accumulation in this area. This is, if I say, this is ABP, that is androgen binding protein, and this is the testosterone which is released. So this kind of a structure, it localizes the richness of testosterone in that area. So what this is doing now, they are now responsible for anabolism, spermatogenesis, and for every other activity which happens in this spermatogenesis process. So they are responsible majorly for anabolism after puberty, spermatogenesis, all these processes when this testosterone would be present in the appropriate quantity in the localized region. Now when these hormone levels are exceeding, then an inhibitory impulse would be given here, and they would stop releasing, they would stop stimulating hypothalamus to stop releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this is how it works. One thing I can also say that testosterone is broken down into dihydrotestosterone, which is also responsible again for anabolism and spermatogenesis, and FSH is also responsible for stimulating the follicle cells, because FSH is also binding on the spermatogonium, which has two target sites, one for FSH hormone and other for the testosterone, which is released by the Leydig cells on which LH is binding. These are the Leydig cells on which LH is binding, and it starts to form testosterone. So now we will be discussing about oogenesis. Okay, what is happening in oogenesis actually? It is very similar to spermatogenesis, but there is one fact here, that in the end there are not as many number of sperms which are formed. It's only one ovule which is formed and which undergoes fertilization. The other are turned into polar bodies and they degenerate. Fine. So they are degenerated. One more thing which you can see with this diagram is I have drawn a bigger picture of this one and a smaller of this one, because here there is no cytoplasmic, the cytoplasmic division is not a regular process. It is incomplete division of the cytoplasmic contents here. And when I say incomplete division, obviously this one which will be receiving more cytoplasm will also be having more number of cell organelles. So the cell organelles and cytoplasm are larger in the secondary oocyte here and lesser in the first polar body, which may or may not divide and eventually it degenerates. Fine. When I say oogenesis, again it starts only at the puberty process. Initially there are oogonium, but the maturation and the meiotic division only starts after puberty. Before that they undergo atresia. What is atresia? Atresia is basically self-destruction. So they generate and they are self-destructed, but after puberty they undergo to form primary oocyte, then undergo meiosis 1, then ovulation process happens, and then fertilization if possible. If not, then they are given out to make way for the new egg cell here. So this is the entire process of oogonium converts to primary oocyte, then undergoes meiosis 1, where again the chromosome number is half. And I am not telling the same process again, because we all know that in meiosis the chromosome number are reduced. Then ovulation process goes on and then it forms the secondary polar body, which again degenerates, and this one is ready for the fertilization. So now let's discuss about where all of this is happening, what all the hormones are regulating this process. So I'll be discussing of the hormonal role of how the chromosome numbers are basically reduced to half, or what is controlling the oogenesis here. So this all is happening in the ovary. Ovary has a large number of follicles, fine, or I may say oocytes. They have a large number of oocytes supported by they have supporting cells also present around it, supporting follicles which we say. So the oocytes are surrounded by supporting follicles. So now what is there in the supporting follicles? They all have receptors, but the cell which has more number of receptors will be the first one to bind to the hormones and start the ovulation process. The rest other will not mature. So if I say this oocyte has more number of receptors which has responded to the hormone levels. So what are the hormone levels again functioning here? Very similar to that hypothalamus is releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone, and this hypothalamus is doing after or at the time of puberty. After puberty, the hypothalamus starts releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone, which again targets the anterior pituitary site, to start releasing FSH and LH. See, these hormones are very similar to that what we have learned in spermatogenesis, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So these hormones are released by anterior pituitary, and again they have their own target cells here. So what is happening with luteinizing hormone? Luteinizing hormone is actually helping in the maturation of primary oocyte. Okay, and what is happening with FSH? FSH is actually acting on the follicles here, on the follicles present here, and they starts to form estrogen. They start to form estrogen hormone. So whenever the concentration of FSH and LH are low, or at the time of puberty, hypothalamus starts releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone. They target the anterior pituitary to start releasing follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone binds to primary oocyte which is present in the follicle, so as to initiate the process of meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 in the metaphase 2. This is what we have learned in the previous diagram. So this is all helping in the ovulation process. But the FSH which is formed has a receptor site present on follicles. So when FSH binds to the follicles which are present, they start to synthesize estrogen Fine. This estrogen again targets the anterior pituitary to release a second wave of luteinizing hormone. They are again targeting anterior pituitary to releasing luteinizing hormone. Now this luteinizing hormone will further stimulate this process, and in turn what happens? Ovulation happens. Fine. So this oocyte is now matured, and now I'll just rub this diagram off. This oocyte is now mature and ovulation is happening. So this damaged follicle is left here, and this ovulation process happens. So where oocyte is formed. So now this is damaged and it grows into corpus luteum, and this is further now moving to the fallopian tube, through which it enters into the uterus where the fertilization has to happen. What happens with this corpus luteum? This corpus luteum now acts as a cell or a cellular mass which is releasing many hormones. Fine. This is now releasing many hormones. One is progesterone. Next one would be inhibin. Next is FSH and LH. So this is released in lesser quantity, that is progesterone. They are released in higher quantities. All of them would be giving a negative impulse. All of these hormones, progesterone, inhibin and FSH, are giving a negative impulse to the hypothalamus to stop releasing GnRH, because they have appropriate quantities of these hormones present here. So the LH is responsible for formation of a mature oocyte, while the FSH is responsible for releasing estrogen, which binds to anterior pituitary to again release LH, which is helping in the maturation process here. When the ovule is matured, they detach from the follicle, they move to fallopian tube, from there they move to uterus where the fertilization will take place. So this is all an ovarian cycle. Fine. So don't confuse the ovarian cycle with the menstrual cycle, although they work parallelly. But when this fertilization will not take place, then what happens to the uterus is the part of menstrual cycle. So this is all for ovulation, and whenever these hormones are being formed, all of these hormones would be responsible for completion of the process of oogenesis. Thank you.